Hi, everyone. My name is Kirk Bachman, and welcome back to The Ultimate Dish. In today's episode, we're speaking with Julie Peláez, a board-certified holistic health coach and certified yoga instructor who's an expert in helping people use diet and nutrition to create radical change. She is also the co-founder of The Conscious Cleanse and very passionate about the mind, body, spirit, and food connection. Jules studied at the Institute of Integrative Nutrition with nutrition experts Mark Hyman and David Wolfe. Jules is board certified by the American Association of Drugless Practitioners and has coached thousands of people to find their most vibrant health. Join us today as we chat with Jules about food as a gateway to living our greatest potential, conscious cleansing, and balancing physical, emotional, and spiritual wellness. And there she is. Good morning, Jules. How are you?
Hi, Kirk. It is so wonderful to be with you. Thank you so much for having me.
You bet. I'm a little out of breath after that intro. There's a lot there. And let me back into that a little bit. Helping people find their most vibrant health, balancing physical, emotional, and spiritual wellness. Don't we all need this? Oh my goodness. This is so appropriate from a timing perspective, right? Is that a message you hear every single day?
Without a doubt. I mean, we are busier than we ever have been. We're living in unprecedented times. You know, it's just, it's a chaotic world. And if we're not careful, we can internalize that chaos. And I think a lot of people do. And without a doubt, oftentimes our eating is chaotic. And when our eating is chaotic, then we don't feel well in our body. And then there's just this ripple effect, right? And so it's really about just knocking those pillars down so that we can feel good.
I love that. Put so simply, but it's not that simple, right? It takes work. And you know, before we dive in, I have to comment because I'm getting relaxed just looking at the beautiful artwork behind you. So I'm positive there's a story there, right?
Well, so I got this at a local shop. And after being online, I've been working online in my business for more than 10 years. So we were really poised for the pandemic, but I was never happy with my background. And what I started to realize is that, you know, our environment really dictates how we feel. And oftentimes, if you just move some things around in your house, you can like have this infusion of, different energy. And so this used to be over my fireplace. And when I said, enough of this awful Zoom background, I took it. I took it for my office and, you know, just made my office my sanctuary because, you know, to me, this is where the work gets done. This is where I'm helping to transform lives and to serve. And, you know, I've got to be feeling good in order for that to happen. And so that's my jam. And
I love that.
I'm going to launch a new website and I'm going to use that because so many people comment on it. It just, you know, makes me feel good.
It's easy to be drawn to. I really like that. So much knowledge, like right off the bat. We need to catch our listening audience up here really quick. Clearly I'm unbelievably excited to see you and chat today. Folks will realize very quickly that we've met. And it's one of the things that I love so much about our Boulder community here in Colorado. I thought about this a lot. You know, it's friendly, it's inviting. And because Boulder is, you know, it's impactful, it's powerful, but it isn't that big of a community. We tend to get to know each other pretty quickly. And of course, being in the business of cooking, I knew who you were long before you knew who I was. And I'm so thankful that our mutual friend Skip introduced us last season at our son's mutual baseball game. And I have to say, I meet many amazing people like you at my children's events. I think that my children's events should be called networking events. But that's a whole nother podcast, a whole nother story. So so Jules, just to kind of tee this up, everyone has a story, right? And when it comes to nutrition, we all have a special story, a personal story at times. And some stories are filled with passion, some are emotional. Yours is both. And you've told the story, we've talked about it, about how you went from a cigarette and Mountain Dew addiction to transforming your life and your health. So again, for a little bit more background, I think it's really important to share that you're a certified holistic health coach, you're a yoga teacher, which makes you a visionary. And I know that you're passionate about this concept of mind, body, spirit, food connection, which I love, by the way. You're the co-founder of Conscious Cleanse. We'll get to that in just a moment, but there's a beautiful plug right there. And and you appreciate sharing your passion for personal transformation. Wow, this is a lot. You focus on helping others achieve their greatest potential. Absolutely no pressure, right? So
Yeah.
As we dive into that, would you mind sharing a little bit about your personal story and even your journey, your healing journey? Where were you in life, Jules, when you looked down, let's say at that last cigarette or that last Mountain Dew or whatever the vice was, and said, that's it. I need to change. I need to do something about this.
It's a good question. And I wish change were so like instantaneous. I wish that for myself and for everyone else. And the truth of the matter is, I think real change happens slowly over time. And that's certainly the way it was for me. And what I started to notice was that I was out of alignment with these behaviors, were out of alignment with what I was speaking and what I was desiring on the inside. So, we all go through phases in life, right? We all have these phases. I just happened to be in a really long phase of cigarettes and Mountain Dew. And every opportunity I had, I was diving into topics like natural health and vegetarianism. When I was 17, I gave up eating meat and I never went back. I eat fish occasionally, but I was dabbling in yoga classes. I was hanging out at the natural food store, and I was talking about all these topics. I was talking about the food and mood connection, and I was sort of speaking about it from the mountaintop. And at one point, I had my brother-in-law, who happens to be in the restaurant industry. He said, Jules, it's such a disconnect. Like, I don't get how you're talking about these things, but then you smoke cigarettes. And it was a real light bulb. That was a light bulb moment for me, because I was like, oh my gosh, you're not kidding. Like, I am totally out of alignment. And for me, that was, one of those really big aha moments, because I was very identified in so many ways with the lifestyle connected to partying and cigarette smoking and someone who drinks Mountain Dew and doesn't feed themselves well. And on the other hand, I had a vision of myself being a very different person. And so I had to bridge that gap. And bridging that gap is a whole other story in and of itself. But the process took a little bit of time. But I think that when we have a vision and we're really clear on where we're going and who we want to be, then the letting go of the old behaviors and the old habits becomes easier.
So your brother tapped you on the shoulder, which is what brothers should do, right? But I want to come back to, and this isn't on the script, so this is organic, right? You mentioned something really, really important, and I see this with students at times. You said that you were out of alignment. Can you dig a little deeper into, according to what standard, like what you thought you should be, what your role model suggested alignment should be, what you saw in social media or television or in your friends group? What was the alignment that you were supposed to be in? Why was the lifestyle not appropriate in your mind? Did you see something that you wanted to reach for but couldn't get there for some reason?
It's like I said, I started to follow my passions, and my passions really were in holistic health. It really was in meditation and yoga. And, I was coming up in the age pre-social media, so I didn't have all of that. We had vegetarian times, right?
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, I aspired to live a healthy lifestyle. I was really sort of a hippie at heart and sort of always have been, more of a natural, like telling my mom I didn't want to take the medication and that sort of stuff. And her
Yeah.
and her well-meaning, just being like, no, take the medication, you'll feel better. But so I think that in some ways it was me tapping into what was already there and being able to follow that internal guidance by following the thing that lit me up, by following my passions.
And which takes courage too. So I love that vulnerability, if you will, right? Unapologetic. So for some people, making a change, period, let's say health change, is tough. It's there's pressure, there's habit. It's a winding road, right? They get on a health wagon. I've done it. They fall off that wagon, and it feels like it's a never-ending battle, right? It's like, well, next week I'm going vegetarian. Next week I'm, going to change my life. What was there a point? You said 17, you made that big decision to kind of walk away from animal protein for the most part. Was there a point, a success point, let's call it, where you made that's it, lifestyle change? There'll never be another Mountain Dew in my refrigerator or a cigarette in my pocket, right? Do you remember that moment?
Well, I'll tell you the process, because there probably is a moment, and it might take me a moment to get there. But I went through, so when I moved to Boulder, I have to say, you reflecting on how amazing this community is. When I moved to Boulder, it was August 99, and I drove over the hill, and I kid you not, there were 2 rainbows, double rainbows. And then days after that, there continued to be rainbows. And so I moved to Boulder to practice yoga. And I got on my mat every single day, even though it was hard and I sometimes didn't want to go. But what I did in that process was I changed my physiology. I moved my body and I moved my energy, and I healed certain parts of me at that cellular level. The other thing that I did was I started to look at the limiting beliefs, the subconscious program that was really running the show. And I did that by a process. Have you ever heard of Morning Pages by Julia Cameron, or The Artist Way?
I'm about to.
You're about to. I love this. So this is, again, old school. Julia Cameron wrote a book for artists. It's called The Artist Way. And one of the processes in there that she talks about is morning pages. And so what you do is you wake up in the morning, you put your pen to paper without censoring yourself, you start writing. And you just write and write and write, and you move your pen for at least 3 pages. Typically, it's about 15 minutes, but you don't do any more or any less than that. And that's the commitment. And I did that for about 3 months until I finally got tired of writing, I want to quit smoking. I should quit smoking. I really need to quit smoking. Finally, I was so sick of myself. I was so sick of the thought. I literally was physically tired of writing it that I got to see it like very up close as to the fact that it was just done. I was just done with it, but I literally had to exhaust myself by writing it. And that's the tricky thing about subconscious programs, is they're deep, and we have to be willing to look at them in order to make that sustainable change.
Was this change super evident to your brother, for example? Was there this, hey, Jules, no cigarette, no Dew?
Yeah, so this is actually my brother-in-law. And, after I got into yoga, it was very quickly, I quit smoking. And a year later, I went to yoga teacher training. And from that point, I was on a different path. Yeah. I had caught up to that vision I had of myself. I was living what I was speaking. I was living my word, right?
Yeah.
And it took some time, but eventually, I just started, I changed my friend group. I changed my environment. I changed who I was living with, and really started to just align all these different aspects of my life and my career. Right. So that also was a big career shift for me as well.
And we'll get to this piece, but as you're changing, was there ever a thought that early on that I'm going to be an evangelist? I'm going to share my word. I'm going to shout it from the mountaintops because I feel great about myself, and I want others to feel this way too.
For sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think I'm a little more low key than an evangelist. And actually, I can go into extreme experimentations, but I feel like it's really grounded in who I am to really meet people where they're at and not treat food or diet like religion. To me, everything is welcome. We don't need labels. We don't need dogma. What we need is just to be human and be compassionate with ourselves and with others. And I would say with my friends and my family, my husband, I've been more quiet about those changes because I'm a peacekeeper at heart. And so I literally on the Enneagram, if you're familiar with it, a peacekeeper. And what in my just quiet way of doing this for myself, not everyone, a lot of people have lined up, especially in my nearest and dearest circle, meaning, husband used to be rooting for gluten. Now he's 100% gluten and dairy free. Like he literally was the guy that was going to make the shirt rooting for gluten.
I love that. I'm totally stealing that. Two things. I can't let it go away because this is TikTok material, right? Sometimes it's a cliche, but meet people where they are or where you are. We can't forget about that. It's so important. Even in my environment where I have students who are aspiring to learn more every single day, we have to meet them where they are. But you said something that was brilliant just a second ago. You said you caught up with the vision you had of yourself. How brilliant is that? I'm totally stealing that, by the way, as well. People come to us all the time with a vision, and then it gets hard, right? Transportation falls through, jobs fall through, relationships, family, all of that. And it's hard for them to catch up with the vision that they have for themselves. So thank you for that. Super, super profound. I'll probably come back to that in a minute. I want to tie it into this whole notion of mind, body, spirit, and the connection to food. And as we've chatted, about this, Jules, that Escoffier recently launched a holistic nutrition and wellness program. I'm super excited to share that it's been popular. We have a number of students who have started the program over the last few months. I'm really excited about where the program can go, right? And our conversation's part of that. A big part of this program, and others like it, is the importance of treating the whole human, not just the body. And I didn't invent that, right? I think too that we're trying to help students understand how to leverage culinary foundations and techniques. We talked about this yesterday, essentially, along with nutritional science, wellness concepts, coaching as a means to support individuals who are aiming for a positive relationship with food, with diet, overall health, well-being. So with that as a backdrop, from your perspective, in your words, what is mind, body, spirit, and food connection? And related to that, how does someone listen to their body to get to that place?
So food is the on-ramp. Food is the gateway. Clients come to see me because they want to lose weight, or because they're fatigued, or they're dealing with some chronic illness, or their hormones are out of balance. And then we end up having this, deep philosophical, spiritual conversation. And so body, mind, and spirit is how food is an entry point. We come and we talk about the food that you put in your body. Food is energy. Food is information. It's not just calorie in, calorie out. We know that now, but I was raised in an era where, fat is bad, and, it was calorie in, calorie out. If you want to lose weight, you got to exercise it off, right? Mm-hmm. It's not that way anymore. We know that nutrient density is most important. And so when you're putting better quality food in your body starts to change. And then you want to start moving. And I talked about movement. I talked about yoga. The body needs all these nutrients. It needs all these, essential things. And movement is one of them. We have to move the body. You move the body, you change your energy. You help your digestive system, right? You help your focus. You improve so much just by moving your body. And so we can't talk about food without talking about that. We can't talk about food without talking about sleep, right? It's all connected. The food that you put in is going to have a direct output. What I've realized more recently is just how important the mindset is. Because like you said, I've had clients come to me, they've been on every diet. And sometimes I feel like they know more about nutrition and different programs than I do, right? Because they've done all of the things on the wheel, on the wagon, off the wagon, on this diet roller coaster. They've lost weight, they've gained weight, they've lost weight, they've gained weight, and they've had it. And it goes back to mindset, right? It goes back to really addressing those subconscious limiting beliefs. Those subconscious beliefs, for most of us, were programmed before we were 7, right? So, I had a client who had a memory of being home alone every single day because her mom was working. And so the TV was in the kitchen. So what did she do? She turned the TV on and she ate. And that was her comfort. When mom wasn't around, that was her comfort. Yeah. And so we illuminate things like that. And then when you see that for what it is, you see, oh, I'm using food to comfort myself. You can then rewrite that story. Sure. You can decide how you want to be around food. And are there other ways for you to comfort yourself? And then spirit is everything, right? Spirit is that alignment. Spirit is the creator. Spirit is your higher power, nature, whatever you want to call it, life force. To me, that's everything. And that's when we align with spirit, all this other stuff becomes a lot easier. And you're right, it is. It can be difficult getting there. Like we have to chop down all the weeds, right? We got to pull the weeds out of the garden in order to plant those better beliefs, those better thoughts. And that's where the better habits start to stick.
I love that. I think you could teach in a culinary school. I had a pastry chef years ago who talked about a little bit about alignment and things just coming into focus. When the item that they were working on was as close to perfection as it could possibly be. And he used to call that harmony. It was such a beautiful, simple word. What does harmony mean? It means, we're in alignment. We have a mutual friend, the lovely Lauren Lewis, who I talk a lot to about yoga, and she teaches some of our folks on a monthly basis. Could we come back to, just because it's so fascinating to me, this cross section between yoga, you touched on it just briefly, and healing the body. It's probably not for everyone, but it's for a lot of people. And I know that you are a big proponent, as is Lauren. Can you speak a little bit more of why you believe yoga is in perfect alignment with your philosophy here?
Well, you could put yoga, you could insert, instead of yoga, you could insert running. I was a runner for a long time. I was a swimmer. I was a dancer. You could insert all of those things. Okay. The key is movement, right? And I would even add getting outside, being in nature, going for a walk, any type of movement that really helps you quiet your mind. And for some people, I know when I was a runner, I didn't necessarily quiet my mind, but I churned, right? And I just processed all of the thoughts in my head. And in a lot of ways, we do that in yoga. But for me, yoga taught me breath, which is everything. And really, when you can master your breath, you can master your physiology. And when you master your physiology, this is what the great yogis were doing. Learning to calm the central nervous system is crucial for everything, right? If you're working on, a new recipe or a new, culinary masterpiece, or you're working on a book, or you're getting ready to go on stage, or you're dealing with your children, right? It's learning how to calm the nervous system is really, really key. And what's happened in this busy modern life is that our cortisol is through the roof. We're in chronic stress all the time. And so yoga, breath, discipline learning to focus the mind, being able to sit for 90 minutes in what is extremely uncomfortable is training. I think of it as training for life. And what happens in the yoga room and you commit to being in that process, it made me a totally different person. Like I said before, I think I healed a lot of my old stuff just through that discipline. So yeah, learning to focus and to pause and to take those breaks, to take that time out, and know that when you learn to take those breaks, again, whether it's yoga or meditation or whatever it is, you are actually, I feel like you're gaining time, right? So on my busiest days, I always make it a point to either, take a walk or do yoga or meditate for 20 minutes, because I know that it actually makes me feel like I have more time in my day, right?
Brilliant.
So the creative energy
Brilliant.
flows easier.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. I love that.
How does that relate to food? I mean, I think that's where we make our choices, right?
Yeah.
If we can be calm and centered, we can make better food choices.
Really, really, really good advice. Really good advice. If someone, Jules, is struggling with making a life change for whatever the reason, maybe there's some depression, maybe they don't know that they're depressed, maybe they are overwhelmed, work, school, caring for family members, the pandemic, it's all taken a toll, right? What is there any gentle advice? You've had a lot of advice, but it's hard. It's so hard to make that initial jump, right? Or even step. Is there any advice for the smallest change? Just something tiny to do every day. You mentioned the writing. You got to the point where you were done with the writing, so you had to make that change. Any tiny little bit of advice for so many of us that just need to make that change? They need that nudge to get going.
Well, you mentioned being gentle, and that's really, I think that's the advice. If you have to write that on your bathroom mirror, like to be gentle with myself, I'll oftentimes tell clients to put an impactful message like that on their scale. If they're used to standing on the scale and beating themselves up about the 5 pounds they seem to gain overnight, it's like, tell yourself that you're gorgeous. But I think being kind and compassionate and patient and understanding the process and just continuing to show up for yourself in whatever small way that could be. So maybe it's 20 minutes of meditation or 20 minutes of morning pages or making a gratitude list. Gratitude, I think, is the no-brainer way into feeling better. And wherever you're at, you want to just somehow reach for one small, better feeling thought. It's that simple, right? So catching yourself in the moment, if you tell yourself like, oh, it's so hard, and you ask yourself, well, how can I make this what can I do that's just a little bit, like, what can I do right now that's just a little bit easy or that feels just a little bit better, right? And just reach for that better feeling thought in that moment. Gratitude is a great way to do that.
Tony Robbins used to say, like 100 years ago, that we're almost better off having something we're worrying about occur, because then we'll stop worrying about it and we can move on.
Right. But, yeah. Worrying is a prayer for your future is what I try to tell my mother.
Oh gosh, more TikTok material. I love it. I want to come back. You just said something a few minutes ago about making time for yourself. So you look at your schedule, it's crazy busy. How are you going to do it? But what you're saying is make time for yourself, whether it's 20 minutes. Do you believe that people put too much emphasis on the time? So if I just make time for myself, gentle time, 2 minutes, 5 minutes, just do something for yourself, for you anyway, that sort of invigorates you and gets you, in the position to go on with your day and have a great day, right? So could it be that simple? Just one?
It could be that simple.
Yeah.
It could really and truly. I just downloaded Insight Timer, which is a meditation app, and literally did a 3-minute meditation, completely shifted, So yes, Kirk, I'm really glad that you said that, because I think that time is one of those things that we get really caught up in. And that's one of those, sort of conditioned behaviors where we think our lives are run by our clock. So learning to just, take 3 minutes and then work it up to 5 and then maybe 7, right? And it is that simple.
No, I love that. I love that. Hey, so let's have a little bit of fun. Here's my autographed copy of the second edition, I believe, right? And you autographed it twice, by the way. Got your signature, and then I have a happy cooking and cleansing from Jules. So I'm so appreciative. The conscious cleanse. Congratulations, by the way. I know that you and Joe have worked really, really hard to build a very recognizable brand and then to grow a community around it, right? I'd love to kind of dive a little bit deeper into the food aspect of healing our bodies, specifically. So here, tough question, right? It might be obvious, but it's probably a little bit difficult. What is a conscious cleanse?
So when we created the conscious cleanse 12 years ago now, I was really passionate about detox and cellular cleansing and parasite cleansing and the master cleanse, and had really had some big experiences in that realm. But what I noticed was that people were oftentimes doing cleanses and they were taking products, and maybe they were cleaning up their diet a little bit while they were taking these products, but they didn't really make any permanent change. It was just sort of a temporary thing. Our vision with the conscious cleanse, and really, I think sort of the theme of my life's work to date, is really this idea of sustainable change, long-term sustainable change. So the conscious cleanse is really born from this place of wanting to teach people how to live and eat a clean diet, and to be able to tune into their body to know how food makes them feel. Because if you can learn how to do that, you are ahead of the game. I mean, so many people have no idea that the lunch they're eating and then the inevitable, crash and need for an afternoon, cup of coffee or pick-me-up are related. To me, that is, that's crucial. If you just learned that and started to tap into how food makes you feel, you would really start to be on the right path in terms of tweaking your diet for one that is really going to lead you down a path of health versus, manifesting all the chronic conditions, or maybe the turning on the genes and expressing the genes that maybe you're predisposed to. A lot of our health can be affected by our fork, right? By the food that we put in our mouth. We don't necessarily have to fall victim or prey to those, diseases that our parents have.
At the risk of being somewhat personal, and this might be more of a medical response. So 40 years ago, for whatever reasons, right, I needed to have a kidney transplant. My father was the donor of that, and everything. It was just one of those momentary pauses in life, right? I was very young. My father was very healthy, and he still is 85 years old, and I'm still rocking his kidney, right? And I feel blessed every single day. But I there's a few parts to this kind of loaded question, and I'll try to control my emotion. But every day, not a day goes by where, one, I'm not grateful, for another day, right, type of thing. But I think about what food could possibly do, even though my doctors don't worry about that. They're like, that's the least of your worries. Your kidney's great, Do you get that? Do you believe that food, or people want to believe that food can heal them or prevent them from getting sicker? Or is that too much pressure? Are we putting too much pressure on diet to save someone? Being a chef, I watch my salt and and I know that I can't have grapefruit with medications and things like that. So that's 40 years of practice, right? But how do I get across to the student on a break who runs over to the grocery store and gets a big bag of chips? How do I get across to them that that's not good for them? I can't promise them anything. I'm not a doctor. But how do you get across to people like that? Do you use examples? Do you use fact? Do you use data? Do you cry with them? How do you impact people to listen and understand?
I only cry when it has to do with my children and artificial colors.
Yeah.
It works every time.
Oh, I bet. I'm right there with you. Oh, it's a very emotional question. I don't want to put you on the spot, but I want to be able to leverage knowledge to help people make better decisions. And I'm wondering, if you were in front of a group of students, what would you say about that? And what would you say? So much pressure. I'm sorry, Jules. And what would you say if they raised their hand and said, I want to take this holistic program? What can I do to make a difference out there? What's next for me? Will I be a coach? Will I just be a great chef that brings nutritional knowledge into my cooking? I'll shut up and let you take it.
What's the question? there was so much there.
A lot of questions there.
The founder of modern medicine, Hippocrates, said, "Let food be thy medicine." You've probably seen that quote on Instagram or TikTok. It's all over. And actually, I grew up working in restaurants. And I had this experience when it was actually probably between my freshman and sophomore year. I was working at an Irish pub, and one of my fellow servers she shared the book by Anne Wigmore called The Hippocrates Diet. And she was using this program, which consisted of, wheatgrass and colonics and getting, all toxins out of her body, among other things. But it was basically cleansing and colonics. And she healed herself of colon cancer. And that was one of those moments for me that had really lined up. It was one of just, another like aha moment where I was like, there is something here that cannot be forgotten. Because when I think about someone running out to get a bag of potato chips, I think about our modern industrialized food system, which has really done a number on our health. And processed food, the center of the grocery store, if you're a Michael Pollan fan, is really where we get into trouble, all the packaged food. So just go back to eating whole foods that you can imagine picking from a tree. Grab an apple. It is that simple. And when I talk about food and making food choices, for your students who want to make a change, it is just that one thing. Look at your snack. And instead of, grabbing a bar, can you just grab some, carrots and hummus? It's that simple.
Yeah.
Just start adding in more fruits and vegetables.
I love that. And thanks for validating, the question I had somewhere in there. Are there are there some myths, Jules, about holistic wellness that you'd love to clarify?
I think the big one really comes down to this idea that we have to be perfect. And, if you follow any, health influencer on Instagram, it's all perfect. Ugh, makes me so irritated sometimes because I recorded a video on Sunday afternoon of me making the salad dressing. Oh my God, it was such a mess. And I'm probably going to post it because that's real life.
Yes.
And so, it's just this idea that, your students are creative. Are they not?
Of course, they want to be immediately. Yeah.
But we never give ourselves time anymore to just suck. Like lately, I went back to teaching yoga after having like a 5-year hiatus.
Yeah.
And one of the teachers said, just show up to suck. And sometimes that's just what you have to do. You just have to show up to suck. And then the more you do, the better you get. And, nobody's really paying that much attention to what you're doing. I mean, of course they are when you're in school because you're getting, graded on it. But like in social media, they're not really giving you much more than like 15 seconds of their time. So just do it and let yourself be a work in progress.
So mistakes are okay. Mistakes are okay, right?
I always tell my clients that failure is inevitable. Suffering is optional. I'm sure I didn't make that up. Failure is inevitable. Suffering is optional. And we fail forward. And that's what it means to have a growth mindset. And growth mindset is really what it's all about, right? Is just showing up, messing up, learning from your mistakes and moving on, not letting it stop you. Because you started at the beginning of the podcast, like change is hard. Going to school and changing your career, it can be scary. It can be hard. We can be faced with challenges that feel somewhat insurmountable. So I think what you're doing is actually affecting the change. You are making that difference, Kirk. You are educating people to, and that's what my nutrition school, my program did for me. It was like, there were little, what I call gluten-free breadcrumbs, and I got to pick and choose where I wanted to go deeper.
What was the message?
And that's what you're doing for people.
So you went to school a little bit ago. Has the message changed a lot in that decade or 2 decades or whatever it was around? I mean, social media, to your point, everything's perfect. Go to Instagram. It's just perfect after 35 takes, right? It's perfect. Even our children these days, our boys, when they're playing baseball, they know when we've got the phone out and they know exactly when to, give us the big smile, right? Mm-hmm. How was it different getting into your passion when you did versus one of our current students today? Is there more pressure, less pressure? Do they have to leverage technology more? Or is it?
I think that in some ways I was ahead of the time 12 years ago, because I had a vision statement, which was something along the lines of, to inspire a global community of health seekers. And so when we created the Conscious Cleanse, we did it at the yoga studio, and I was learning online for free from YouTube how to take a business online and how to market it. So I didn't really get that training from my nutrition program per se, but YouTube is amazing, right? You can learn anything you want on YouTube. And so that's really the way we took our business online and were able to reach a global audience. I think in a lot of ways, it's the program, the teachings are really the same for your students who want to become a coach. Showing up, knowing that you have a passion for this, you have a desire to serve, a desire to help. And in doing so, you really are creating a container. And I always sit down with my clients, Kirk, and I hold the belief that they are the ones that have all the wisdom. They have the internal guidance. I'm just here to support, to hold that container, to ask good questions, and let them remove the blocks they have to really accessing their own greatness.
So
that's what coaching is.
Oh, beautiful, brilliant. We're going to document that and get your permission to use that over and over and over again. I love it. I love it. I love it. And it's a good lesson for us in the classroom as well, right?
Yeah.
Hey, so we've got to come back to cooking a little bit. I don't know where our time went so quickly, but the name of the podcast is The Ultimate Dish. So now the pressure's really on, Jules. What is, in your mind, the ultimate dish?
Well, I think I can give you two answers, can I? Because there's like the everyday ultimate dish that is reality for me.
I love it. Yeah.
Which is in the cookbook, we have something called Jules Salad of Abundance. And I make a version of that every single day. I make a huge, what is called a meal-sized salad that you would think you were serving that to your family. But I make my family their little side salads, and I sit down with the bowl, and that's my meal. And that has 4 or 5 different greens that are massaged with a really good high quality olive oil and Himalayan sea salt, maybe some nutritional yeast. And then I just load it on with as many colors of the rainbow as I can. And that's my daily ultimate dish.
Beautiful.
But I have to give some props for something I just had this weekend. And you maybe have had it. I know you've been to Oak.
Of
course.
Oh, yeah.
So I went out with a girlfriend and we ordered their halibut ceviche.
Oh, wow.
And we were literally groaning and moaning over this dish.
I'll have what she's having. Yeah.
Oh my word. And we talked to the servers about every server that came by, we were chatting them up. We were like, what's in this? It had gooseberries in it. Never had gooseberries before. Yuzu, you can tell me what that is, but it was very limey, and the halibut. And, again, I eat fish once in a while, but I feel like that type of food and food in general, if your food makes you giddy and it makes you feel high in some way, you're on the right track. That's my ultimate dish.
I just love it. And it's kind of a memory too, right? Because you were there with a friend and she can vouch for you, right?
She sure can, and she will.
Hey, Jules, thank you so much. I mean, we started chatting, a couple of months ago about getting together and chatting as advertised. Absolutely spectacular. Your passion and your love for life and beauty is just absolutely intoxicating. So thank you. Good luck on the diamond. All-star practice has begun. I'll be thinking about you guys, and then we'll see you, when we next compete.
Thank you so much, Kirk. It's such a privilege to be with you. Our synergy right off the bat was there, and then the bump-ins, the synergistic run-ins. I so appreciate you, and really good luck with the launching of this new program. I know it's gonna be super successful.
Oh, we're gonna look for help from you as well. Thank you so much. Thank you for listening to the Ultimate Dish Podcast, brought to you by Auguste Escoffier School of Culinary Arts. Visit escoffier.edu/podcast, where you'll find any materials mentioned during the podcast, including notes, links, and other resources. You can also browse other episodes and subscribe.